Hi, I'm breaking up the run of new releases to talk about a classic Christmas movie, 1935's Scrooge, adapted, of course, from Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol. We all know the story. It's about Ebenezer Scrooge, the miserly skinflint of mid 19th century London, who is visited by the spirit of Jacob Marley, his old business partner, who tells him that such is his state and the point at which he's heading for in death, that he's going to be visited by three ghosts to tell him to mend his ways, which indeed he does over the course of the story. It's one of thousands of adaptations. I think it's the most adapted book in history. This is, I believe, the first feature length sound version, and Seymour Hicks plays the title role, having actually played it on stage for over 30 years, actually since the age of 30. He'd been playing the elderly Scrooge, and even starred in a previous short silent version. It takes some liberties with the original text. There's a lengthy diversion where we see early on Christmas being celebrated elsewhere in London, uh, the Lord Mayor's big dinner where we are treated to the congregation singing the national anthem in full. Um, but there are segments that are retained from the book which are usually cut out, where later on we see Christmas being celebrated in a variety of unusual locales, even in a remote lighthouse, two keepers sharing a meal and some festive spirit between them. The spirits themselves are shown in an unusual original way. The spectre of Jacob Marley is just a voice and never shown on screen, and played by an uncredited Claude Rains. The spirit of Christmas past is just an outline of a figure, while Christmas yet to come is just the shadow of an outstretched finger pointing towards Scrooge's doom. I wasn't completely convinced by Hicks. I don't think that the transformation of the character is as clear as it is in other versions of the story. Certainly by the end, he doesn't seem to be that spirit of brotherhood and bonhomie that he ought to be. Although, again, it's pleasing to see that the actual resolution of the story is kept from the original, where the turkey is sent anonymously to the Cratchit house. Scrooge spends Christmas night with his nephew and his family's party. And it's the following morning when Scrooge, feigning grumpiness, calls Cratchit into his office and invites him in, and then says, "Why don't we have a little drink and we can talk about your future partnership in the business?" And then, again, another added, more Christian element is Scrooge then joining Cratchit in church later and singing a hymn. I think there's very much a sense of the original story isn't Christian enough. It's too generically humanist, and doesn't have enough religion in it, and doesn't have enough fealty to monarchy in it. As a result, I think this is noticeably a less uh, perfect adaptation than the Alistair Sim version. And my personal favourite is The Muppet Christmas Carol, which, although does take quite a few liberties, is actually extremely truthful to the tone and the content of the text, even if it does have a few little diversions here and there. Um, it's certainly an interesting historical artifact. I checked, and Hicks was actually conceived before Charles Dickens' death, so it does have that link back to the Victorian age, which is only 34 years earlier at the time of the film's release. But it's far from a perfect adaptation, hampered somewhat by the crude nature of the production, even though it was a major endeavour for Twickenham Film Studios at the time. So, of historical interest, certainly, but perhaps significantly superseded by other adaptations since.